Hi, I'm Randy Reed, Executive Director of the National Lighting Bureau, and we are here today to present our first ever Tesla Awards. The Tesla Awards were originally scheduled to be presented at Light Fair, but with Light Fair being canceled, we're doing them by Zoom. I would like to introduce Mary Beth Gotti. Mary Beth is a Director at Large of the National Lighting Bureau, and she has been in charge of the Tesla Awards. Mary Beth?
Well, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure chairing this first Tesla Awards in 2020. And you might ask yourselves, why another lighting awards program? And, you think about the initial tenets of the National Lighting Bureau and the continuing ones, and it's been high benefit lighting, really focusing on the value of lighting for people who use a space, for people who experience a space. So we wanted to really reinforce that. And we also wanted to simplify the whole process, make it easy to submit online. And we wanted to focus on collaboration. How do you come to a final design? How do you really get inputs from all the stakeholders in a project? We wanted to certainly establish the value of lighting, but we also wanted to establish best practices. How did you do it? Why did it work? Maybe why it didn't work in some respects here, so that you can share that with other designers. So again, it's really been a pleasure to be involved with the whole project. I'd like to introduce our judges, John Paul Friesenier from the Lighting Research Center, Ruby Jadwitt, a director of the NLB, Howard Lewis, vice chair of the NLB, Terry McGowan, director at large for the NLB, and Jim Yorgi, the treasurer from the NLB. So again, thanks to all of them for the great job they did in evaluating projects and doing all the judging online. So that was a neat experience as well, and they did an absolutely fabulous job. The project that we're awarding right now is Rutgers Lifelong Learning Center. Just an absolutely fabulous project. Designers Dennis Kowal, AIA, Stephen Maliska, Natalia Lesniak, and Susan Kowal. So again, congratulations to all of them. Just a little bit about the project, and I'll ask a few questions just to get the discussion started. This project was the renovation of an existing 3-story, 60,000 square foot building, so big space. It involved a continuing education classroom on the main level, and then 2 upper floors of administration and training space. The lighting objectives were to create occupant engagement, improving comfort, and enhancing occupant productivity, and in various ways that they were able to achieve that. So again, without any further delay, just a couple questions for Dennis. And you described this project as a story of collaboration and exploration using light to increase productivity, improve comfort, engage the occupants in a single academic building. Why don't you talk a little bit about the collaborative design process?
Of course, everyone's talking collaboration. And again, thank you for having me. This is pretty exciting for our office to be honored this way. We consider ourselves innovative, but now to have it being blessed by the organization as innovative is a real tickle for our office. The idea of collaboration is huge now. And it was thought that if you threw a bunch of people together in an open workspace, which the open desking concept that is really sweeping the world, that they would collaborate. I've researched it, and they don't. It was thought that if you took the best people, experts in the world, and put them together with the best resources, if you look at Google's Aristotle project, that was their assumption. Put the best people together with the best resources, and you will have a productive team. I researched that. You do not. It turns out that the intern team at Google, Aristotle Project, outperformed the experts. So what made the difference? Well, it took the Gallup organization to figure this out. And short answer is collaboration occurs when there's psychological safety on the team. What? What's that? That's when there are not a strong dominant leader that's telling you how to do something. It's when every team member feels like they could be part, and their ideas, however weak or timid, are appreciated, and everyone starts to build trust within a team. So our collaboration came out of knowing that, out of building trust. So the first thing we did is did not come in as experts. We went to the Rutgers group, lifelong learning, they're interested in learning. We came to them with boundless curiosity. So we didn't have opinions yet. We didn't say, well, this is what the industry says. We asked questions. And when you ask questions and you're actually intent about getting the answers and you listen, you begin to build trust. And soon we had a team, a high-performing team that lasted through 3 years of design and then bidding and construction with a lot of multiple rolling changes on the project because we started folding in some of these features after the bidding. Many of the features that you are recognizing now were after the bid, but before construction started, because we actually had found another $1 million. So I went to the leadership, which was Dr. Richard Novak of the Lifelong Learning Center, with a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation, and 22 minutes later, he and his associate, Robert Nolan, said, let's do it. That's because we had built so much trust for the year prior of proving that we always presented credible information, never trying to push our agenda, but always listening for theirs, and because they wanted a healthy, comfortable, and productive building, and they saw that the research was there, that lighting, plus the other features of the WELL building standard, can actually impact the employees. So that's how we collaborated, but it didn't stop there. We constantly sold our message. We met with the potential employees that would be moving into the space. We built mock-ups for them to experience and decide what kind of lights they liked or what chairs they liked. And we also constantly communicated by having all kind of pep rallies. Oh, it's 6 months into the project. This is where we are. This is what you can expect. That's collaboration in its largest sense.
Wow, wonderful. You mentioned that this renovation project adhered to the WELL building standard. Explain how that impacted your lighting design.
It's a relatively new standard. I'm a lead AP accredited professional, and I became fascinated with these 7 concepts. Everyone knows kind of from LEED, which is air quality, water quality, light quality, but then they've added 4 other areas that are kind of new to the world. Not to architects, but just as to have a standard for nourishment, fitness, comfort, and mind and beauty. Well, these are things that architects appreciate, but in general, are there standards for these things? And the WELL building standard has established kind of minimum levels in each of these areas. So for air quality, we actually introduced, oh, by the way, this is a 60,000 square foot building on 3 floors. It is kind of a standalone building built for the healthcare industry that Rutgers purchased. It was in total health disrepair when they took it over. I'm talking about mold and 2 inches of skin cells on the inside of the ductwork in the major trunk lines, dim and dark, and low floor to floor plates. We took it over as a renovation, and we were able to transform an unhealthy building where in the morning when the previous owners, occupants came in, they would find a film on their desks. They could just literally pick it up from the air duct system, distributing dirt rather than cleaning the air. We said, hey, can we make this a healthy building? So the lighting aspect of this is certainly natural light. Okay, so everybody's got 13 meters or less to natural light. But the lighting itself became the way we shaped the facility. It was a naturally dark facility. So what we wanted to do is create evenness of lighting. If you look at some of the open desking areas, and when we say open desking, we use cubicles. And that's a whole nother story and probably a whole nother explanation. And right now with social distancing, of course, it's a great blessing to this organization that they have that. We use a hexagonal shape cubicle because nature has designed, the beehive to be the most efficient way of creating a workspace. And with doing that, answered things like acoustics and privacy and the other comfort factors that are described in the WELL building standard. With lighting, we had the evenness of lighting, and for comfort, we wanted to make sure it was glare free. As you know, glare is created when there's more than a 3-to-1 contrast between your task and the adjacent surface, and more than a 10-to-1 ratio between your task and a distant view or a wall. So what we controlled was this evenness, that there wasn't these bright work surfaces against or tasks against a dark work surface against a even darker distant view. That evenness brings a certain comfort when you walk into the space. And yet it isn't boring. It isn't the vanilla office building. It has features. Well, our ceilings articulate. We don't just want to have one big broad level ceiling. What we did is we raised the middle of the ceiling 6 inches. We didn't have much room. But by doing that, we also changed the light fixture, not the lumens, just the light fixture. And we created zones within the light, the sea of light above you that added interest. I could go on, but those are some of the outlines of things that we did from the WELL building standard.
That's great. What were, again, the key, you talked about some of the key ways that you achieve comfortable lighting. Anything else you'd like to add on that?
Yes, so we saved the highlights for corridors or cross aisles. So where we have high contrast is interesting, where you key light something. A plant wall, for example, or we have 3 plant walls and 1 moss wall. We have artwork. That kind of lighting we have, so that as you move through the building, I always call it like a movie. I don't want to be able to know the whole story from as the moment I walk onto a floor, see everything and be done. I like to explore. I like an adventure. I want a little mystery. And so we do actually have some corridors, not many, but these corridors are curved. They, you can't see down them, so to speak. You have to go around them to see what's at the other end. And every time we arrive at a visual point, we give you a focal point. Sometimes we highlight that with light. Sometimes it is a light, it could be a natural light that you see. And then when you get to that point, there's a next mystery that we lead you to. So the building is about exploration. The light is used to in many different ways to control that experience, from surprise to the work and task environment where you needed to have less surprise, so to speak. And the other ideas of comfort, of course, was glare control, that we had automated and manual shades with 95% light reduction, yet you can see clearly the beautiful woodland surroundings to this building.
What were, describe any challenges in incorporating circadian lighting design elements? Obviously a very hot topic in the lighting industry today. So
yes,
congratulations on endeavoring to incorporate that.
Many will probably laugh at me with my answer now because we forget. But in 2016, when I was investigating circadian lighting, the moment I heard the concept, I fell in love with it. And I brought in Natalia Lesniak to assist me with circadian lighting in this project. I knew I wanted to incorporate it, and the owner understood the value. This is called biohacking. When you hack into the brain, and in this case, circadian entrainment is to kind of wake you up and set your biological clock and say, okay, it's time to work. We're going to use tunable lighting. Now, again, people are going to laugh because it's probably very simple to get now, but in 2016, when I was researching this, the controls and the tunable lighting together as a package was a bit of a complicated fit. You had to design your drivers and everything to work with the controls, and we wanted our control system not just to tune the light fixtures as the day changes from the blue wave light to the more red wave light. We also wanted to use the same controls to control the dimming aspect when it's cloudy, the lights get brighter, and also the shades up and down and other controls. Well, this kind of sophisticated approach to one control system doing everything limited us to manufacturers. And the manufacturers weren't all making tunable light fixtures. Some of them have they just migrate from one set of LEDs over to the other set. Some have more complicated scenarios on how they produce that tunable light, and it became expensive. The bottom line, the challenge to it was to get everything I could see that I wanted to actually make it work at that time was expensive, too expensive for the project. And we had a huge budget for circadian lighting. I had already propped the budget up to be able to afford it. Well, we did. We put in circadian lighting, but we just did a fixed 480 nanometer kind of thrust of the blue light we use the melanopic lux model, meaning getting 250 equivalent melanopic lux at 4 feet above the floor level, measured vertically for not just 75% of the occupants, but almost the majority of the occupants. And so we have circadian lighting. Challenge was the tunable, did not work out for us.
Again, your project submittal was so complete, but you included a post-occupancy survey. So you want to give us a quick summary of those results?
Yeah, we waited 6 months to go back, and what our survey was not a written survey. We actually had a 2 to 3 hour meeting with the department heads, who then surveyed their departments to give us the skinny on the building. Some of the things we found out that weren't working in a couple of instances were good life lessons. One was our WattStopper occupancy sensors, which are actually built into the light switch of an office. In some cases, the lights were going off on the occupants of the offices while they were in the room. And it didn't take long for us to figure out that the occupants had brought in some unauthorized or unexpected furniture, a bookcase or this and that, blocking the sensor. So they turn the lights on and it's down for 20 minutes, and then we just naturally go off because it could not read that there's someone at the desk. Our plants also were becoming obstacles to the sensors. All right, so those were easy to solve. Life lessons, make sure you inform everybody in advance how the system actually works so they understand if there's a problem to move something. What else we found out there's some hot spots. Some of our downlights that we were using created hotspots. That was solved by adding $10 diffusers onto the lights. Okay, so there were many little things like that we learned and corrected. But what were the big lessons? There were no big negative lessons. Oh, you should never have done that or this. That was good to get. What we really got was a whole bunch of praise. Everybody loves the building. There's a certain feel. The moment you walk into the building, there's a certain feeling to it. And that mystery I talked about, which was intentional, about coming around a corner, what am I going to see? And then being delighted because there is something. When we design, there's never a backside to our buildings. You know, there's not the side you photograph. And then, well, don't go around the back. Many houses, the McMansions have the brick fronts. But you go around the side, it's vinyl siding, and you're around the back, it's worse. There's a deck hanging, 13 feet in the air out the back and no landscaping. When we design a building, every view from every angle is photographable. You know, you can spin on your heels and take pictures. And now that's not an accident. That's because we spin on our heels here in the office and look at everything from every direction. And if something doesn't look right, we realign it and make it look that way. So this small 60,000 square foot building is filled with surprises. We have a cinema in this building. We have art walls. We have a high technology classroom. And this is an interesting room because remember, 12-foot floor plates is low. How do I create a sense of loft in a building with 12-foot floor plates? What we did is, as many do, is we left the ceilings out, painted the deck, acoustically sprayed it, painted the deck black or dark gray, and then we custom designed these 10-foot circles, hoops of open grid. So imagine just a 2x2 ceiling grid, but placed into a circular ring and painted with aluminum paint and some in black. And we hung them at different heights. The circles were actually some different sizes. And then we took wall washers, standard wall washers, and used them in a new way. We ceiling washed with them. We turned them horizontally and washed these rings with light. So now you're in this space. There are these kind of planetarium spheres above your head, and beyond that is darkness. And it gave the appearance of loft into the space. And that's how we use light to achieve that. Also, we put a truss system up to hang the projection screen. This was a high technology classroom with video conferencing and lots of monitors, lots of technology. So we wanted somehow for you to walk in and feel that. And one of the things we used was what's called truss warmers from the DJ industry, so to speak. We put LED lights at the base of the trusses and uplift them, giving it a kind of a space age look. When you go in, you go, wow, I'm gonna learn something. Well, at least that's my impression.
Terrific. Well, you know, again, congratulations on your creative solutions, on a really outstanding design. I'd like to open it up now to our judges and Do you have any questions for Dennis?
Hi, it's Jim Yorgi, and it is a beautiful project. Well done. You're talking about the well building standard and LEED as well. Did you find the assessment process at all challenging, and did you run into any conflicts between well and LEED?
First of all, a funny story. I ran into my attorney from 30 years ago. She's now into the green building industry. She's not an attorney anymore, but she had just taken the exam for the well AP. And she said to me, you know, I have a master's degree. I'm a lawyer. I've worked in all my life. Is that the hardest exam you've ever taken? And indeed it is. I mean, I almost had a heart attack on the first question. So first of all, the well standard is, it is like LEED. It is very much about formula and understanding. There are not a lot of, well, the difference between LEED and well is this. LEED, I also teach. I'm an adjunct at Villanova and two community colleges. I teach around the world through a World Institute. I teach facility management. I teach executive leadership, project management, finance and business, and operations and maintenance, and also sustainability. And one of the things that LEED does is protects the environment from buildings, right? Smaller carbon footprint, less energy use, don't use up valuable resources. And they realized there was a hole in that. Just protecting the environment from buildings at the expense of the occupants, because as we seal the buildings up to make them more energy efficient, we created our own syndromes, building syndromes and other things inside the buildings. Well does not give one thought about energy. Spend as much as you want. It is about protecting the occupants from the building. And so we introduce natural ventilation, higher quantities than are set by code, because we found that improves cognitive performance. We invite the sun in, of course, and also provide things like ergonomics, like sit-stand desks. Throughout the whole facility, we have that. We introduced a waterfall. It is a three-dimensional waterfall. You can walk around it. It's a sheet of stainless steel mesh that hangs from the ceiling in a curved shape, 12 feet wide, and the water clings to it as it comes down to the base. It gets recirculated, but we use UV light. What do? The waterfall naturally, there's a known physics principle that waterfalls create a negative ion charge around them. All of the pollution in the building is positively charged. So that comes off your cathode rays and everything in the building. And so naturally, this waterfall is attracting the pollution in the air and adding humidity. Well, once that pollution is attracted to the waterfall, it goes down, and then we have several stages of purification of that water, including UV light. We also used UV light in our wellness room as a dynamic cleaning agent. So it's constantly being cleaned just by having the night light on, so to speak. So the challenges of the well building were enormous to me. I took the exam, but then I poured over that manual. I still don't have it all in my head, but every single concept that I could put my hands on that we could do at a reasonable cost, we introduced in this project. The hardest one was nutrition, because they have vending machines, but not a cafeteria. So all we could do is limit some of the sugar content to 15 grams per 8-ounce serving, things like that in the vending machines, and to create spaces for 50% of the employees to be able to fit at break rooms, so that we encourage them to bring their own healthy foods in from home rather than going out, to the local fast food location. Without getting into the details, that's the overview. It was a consuming process. I loved learning it. I loved applying it. And I tell you what, it worked, because the results from that occupancy survey were, this building is amazing. Everybody loves working here. And whenever we bring visitors to the building, they always say, can we work here?
Did you go to just a single channel system where it's not a dimmable system at this point?
It's dimmable, but it's not tunable.
Okay, because I didn't hear about the controls, so I was just kind of curious.
So we went back to the simple, embarrassed to say, well, let's stopper controls for everything. But So we didn't have that tunability. We didn't have total integration. Of course, the watch stopper dims the lamps when the sun comes out and keeps the foot candle consumption down when we don't need it. In general, it's interesting the way people want to work these days. I mean, the ideal system, I would say, and this has existed for 20 years. I know Philips used to make a light with you had a TV remote at your desk and you could operate your own 2x4 fixture over your head, right? And that was going to be the future. We all had our own control. We can raise and lower. Of course, the way we share lighting in open work, even in cubicles, we share lighting. If somebody wants it darker in this corner of the room, you're also darkening your neighbor. So it's real hard to provide controllable lighting other than ambient light, and then now give everybody task lighting that indeed allows them to turn the lights out in their cubicle and just look at their monitor. Lighting, I still don't have a handle on it. We still have some glare in the building. We had one complaint where there were a couple of monitors where they're getting reflection, not glare. They could actually see a light fixture, distant light fixture reflecting in their monitor. Of course, the solution to that is anti-glare glass, or to move your monitor at the desk. Some of those things I don't think we'll ever be able to control, but ask for lessons learned. It was some of those smaller level things is like, well, it didn't work for this person, but it worked for 95 other people. And I think you're gonna always have that. I think we did a fairly good job of anticipation.
So this is a point of curiosity more than anything else. Let's make believe that you guys had endless funds, money was no object. If you had gone to a full 5-channel system, do you think that it would have made any difference in this particular application?
Well, I do believe the studies, and even the airlines. If you've done the international flights, some of the flights you'll notice they hit you with blue light when you go on the plane, and when it's ready to fly overseas, a wise international traveler leaving at noon goes right to sleep on that plane, because you're going to be losing time. When you wake up, when you arrive, it'll be 8 a.m. You're going to be up for 36 hours. And so I noticed these international flights, they pull the shades, they have a blue light when you arrive, but by the time everyone's settled and we're in the air, we're over the ocean, the red light starts coming on. I think, that what they're doing is taking very proven technology and biohacking us to help us go to sleep, reset stimulate the melanopsin, and getting us in our bodies thinking it's time to rest. And so I very much believe that it would improve the productivity in the future. It's just like ADA. You cannot buy, all the fixtures are ADA compliant. Also, the EPA came out with water saving features, 1.6 gallons per flush, things like that. You cannot buy non-compliant fixtures anymore. And I think in the future, everything, you can't buy incandescent bulbs. Well, practically you can't. I believe things will just naturally migrate to this. We'll all be doing it. It's not going to be extra cost or a felt cost, and it'll be generally accepted. So that's my endorsement. I don't have at my fingertips all the research, but I will tell you, I read the research all the time. And the latest research that's shocked the world, rocked the world, came out of Harvard. They do a great job over there studying environmental health and studying business. And the research that came out that said that when a Fortune 500 company moved from basically cubicles and closed offices to the open desking environment, collaboration dropped by 50%. Now, they didn't survey people, that's subjective. They put monitors on the people. Monitors that will use Bluetooth technology, geosensing, use audio recording to say, they actually figured out the speech patterns, whether they're talking about family or talking about work. And they, with everyone's permission, they studied that move. And they did it again with another Fortune 500 company. And when those companies moved from their old environment to this new open desk concept, which was supposed to be collaboration, they found out that the collaboration went down. People would look up and just email the person across the room rather than going over and talking to them. And so it seems intuitively wrong. Even I would probably be tempted, if I were to design a whole new architectural office for myself, I'd still be tempted to get one of those big brick lofty buildings with the high ceilings and tall windows and just put open desks everywhere. It's just so tempting. It seems so right. But now that there is actually scientific research, not subjective, is that collaboration goes down. I think we did the right thing in our building in staying with the cubicles, because this is something we consciously did. We didn't go to the open desking on purpose to create that comfort factor, the ergonomics, the acoustics, and also to give people a sense of privacy, knowing that bright people will get up and meet if they have to. One of the things we had in the project is a bubble wall. It's double sheets of Lexan filled with water and a bubbler at the bottom. It's basically 8x8 in a bent wing shape. And the bubbles come up from the bottom. You wouldn't see them except that we edge lit the bubble wall. And now these bubbles are like a flickering flame. And when people walk by, there's chairs there. They sit down and they stare at it just like a campfire. And the thing we noticed, and occupant surveys told us, is that then the next person stops. And pretty soon you have a little spontaneous meeting that you didn't expect around this flickering fire of bubbles going up. So we use light in every way that we could think of to engage, to increase productivity, to bring comfort, and to reduce stress. I thought the bubble wall was going to be a stress reliever when I put it in, just like a fireplace is. I don't know if I answered your question with science. I just answered it with opinion.
No, that's perfect. And again, I mean, I was on a flight on an A380 to and from Abu Dhabi, and I experienced exactly what you were talking about. It was much more comfortable. Thank you so much. Great project.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question about the HVAC. You mentioned kind of the funk or the junk that was in the HVAC. Did you clean that with UV like you did your water?
No, long story, short answer. We only saved the huge 4-foot by 7-foot vertical trunks on this project. We had designed a replacement, but we have a user group who had the funding to do this project appropriately. But we also have a corporation, the university at Jet, so that's like a big daddy, and there's a whole group of advisors that we have to get through there. This project is, it's amazing it passed. First of all, Rutgers doesn't have a waterfall in any other building on the campus. And everybody knows anything about Rutgers University, it's huge. They have hundreds of buildings. So everything we did was the first. You know, they hadn't even heard of circadian lighting. We put in bevy dispensers, which is water, purified water that we then, if you choose to, we can fizz it up, put a little carbonation in it, put some sugarless flavor into it, and we provide that free to the occupants to encourage them to hydrate rather than drink coffee. So we have all these ideas that had never been done before. We got them through, but we got stopped on replacing the vertical trunks. They just didn't want to spend the money. They said, we'll come up with something else. Well, they didn't. So at the end, I had to scramble because no one had handled it, but they were going to handle it offline, out of our scope, out of the contractor's scope. I had to scramble, and we found an encapsulation method where they sent a spinning head down this trunk, and the spinning head actually encapsulates the acoustical lining. It was cleaned first, vacuumed free, and then we sprayed an encapsulation on top of it to keep any of that black fiberglass acoustical lining from flaking off and going into the air supply. So, but that's just the solution there. It wasn't the best solution, but that's how we did it. We did not use UV light for any of the air cleaning.
Okay, and with the waterfalls, I assume it's UVA, not UVC?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And is the garden wall totally separate from the waterfall that you're talking about?
Yeah, the waterfall we put practically at the entrance to this building. Again, we wanted to humidify the building. What's very interesting are the studies coming out of Dr. Stephanie Taylor, Harvard University again. She's an architect and she's a doctor. And I just love her work, and we had a chance to collaborate a little bit, and I took some of her concepts for this building. One of the things she discovered is that they were doing some hospital work. They wanted to know why the infections are spread in a hospital. And what they found was that they took two hospitals which are undisclosed, but they're here in the Northeast of the United States. And they took 9 identical patient rooms. That means if they're left-handed, they took 9 left-hand rooms with the same types of patients in them, and same size, same exposure to the sun. And they set up controls. They hired a company to set up controls to change one variable at a time, or to watch one variable at a time. For example, hand washing. Did the doctor wash his hands every time he came in the room? Did the healthcare workers wash their hands? How many outside visitors were? Then they started changing variables like the lighting, the temperature, the humidity. I forget all the factors, but they were astounded when they got through to the end of the study as to what the results were. They concluded pretty positively that the spread of infection went down when they changed one of these variables and the others really didn't matter much. And that variable was the relative humidity in the room. They said, this can't be right. So they did the study again with a different organization. They got the same results the second time. So I asked her why. And she said, first of all, viruses, when they go into a dry environment, such as people, we expire and our linings, mucus linings dry out. Well, the virus does the same thing. The virus gives up some of its water content and gets lighter. And when it gets lighter, it was found for floating in the air for up to 28 days. Whereas, why are we 6 feet apart? Because when we sneeze, it takes 6 feet for that virus to hit the floor because there's water in it. It drops down. By keeping the humidity in these hospital rooms in what's normal for people, right, 45 to 55%, it kept the viruses heavy. I'm using layman's terms to explain all this, but the study, you can look it up, is serious. And so I go, you're kidding me. I know humidity is great for people. No architects, no engineers humidify any buildings in the United States. Some homes have it, some surgical suites, there are exceptions. But in general, we don't humidify our office buildings. So why do we all get sick in the winter? Because in the summer, there's plenty of humidity that seeps into our buildings, even though we're dehumidifying with our HVAC equipment. But in the winter, it's especially dry. And the viruses at that point are in this dry environment and they get lighter and they stay up in the air and they float around. There are other factors. I have a little slide presentation on that as well. So I absolutely wanted to increase the humidity in this building. So did our users. But corporate said, it's hard to maintain humidity systems. We don't have them in our buildings. We don't want it here. I was heartbroken because we had to fund it. We had the user, everybody was on board, but corporate knocks it down. I'm talking about the university at large.
Right.
So I pulled a switch and bait, or whatever you call it, bait and switch. I found this waterfall, this 12-foot wide. We custom designed it. We made it curved. We put it in the first thing you see is the lobby, and beyond it is this big, what we call mission showcase. We always give things names in our buildings. You want to know what it is? It's a big break room. It's a flat floored meeting room for 100 people with breakout spaces in it. But when you walk in, it feels like it could be a meeting room, feels like it could be a cafeteria, feels like it could be anything. And the way we screen that meeting room or break room off from the rest of the lobby is with this translucent waterfall. Remember, it's just a mesh and the water's clinging to it, it's coming down. But that's where 90% of all the pollutants come in the front door, right? And that's why we had doubled the walk-off mat in this building. Normally you have doors 8 feet apart as a windbreak. Well, we doubled all that so that there would be more tracking on the floor and cleaning of the mats to keep most of those contaminants from coming in, which is the fertilizers outside and the bird poop that you just stepped in on the sidewalk. All that stuff is tracked off. Then anything else that comes in is immediately attracted to this waterfall, and we purge it there and clean it. I actually forgot the initial question. I'm so swept up in all these crazy ideas, but the humidity, we got back in by bringing in the waterfall. It does so many things. It's beautiful. We light it, again, edge light it. And so and we could change the color. if the owner does, and their color is red. So a lot of times this waterfall is red. And also it cleans the air, and it has another nice acoustic property. It's got that subtle sound. Everybody loves the sound of a babbling brook. And it creates ozone around it, which is not necessarily healthy for you, but that's that smell after a rain, that fresh smell. So it's a stress relieving feature as well. I'm fortunate to get that in, and that's why we sneak the humidity into the building right at the entrance.
Perfect.
Well, obviously you designed this before the pandemic, but looking at the knowledge we have today, you look brilliant by doing that.
Yeah, I'm kind of proud that these concepts that were against the grain, everybody else was doing open desking. You know, right, for months you get emails, used cubicles for sale.
Right.
Who would have thought right now they're a hot item, right? That everybody wants to buy a cubicle, bring it back. I have, I'm one of my students is a facility manager for a large pharmaceutical company. He said they had a building that they vacated and they were going to demolish. And they decided, because they had these new beautiful spaces, open labs and open desking and, you know, very close quarters. He says, we're actually not going to demolish the building anymore. It actually has the social distancing already built in because it's the old way, and we're going to move our people into the old building. So yes, I designed a new old building.
Well, thank you so much. And Mary Beth, if you want to wrap up and thank him.
Yes, again, but congratulations to you and your team on an exceptional project. And we look forward to seeing another project from you next year for the 2021 Tesla Award.